Greetings and welcome to my dear Aquarians out there. This is Ron from Tarot of the Twin Sun. I am working here on the YouTube platform to bring a look into the future for the month of September 2025 for the energy of Aquarius. Welcome. Thank you for subscribing, liking, etc. Yes, we are covering the astrological composition, the disposition of the 1st of September. This reading should permeate in terms of the look throughout the month. We're not going to animate much here, but we're going to definitely sort of show what's going on this month. And basically what I see here first is that your ruler, Saturn, okay, traditional ruler of Saturn, is in retrograde in the second house. It's kind of creating this this harmonic here with the Pluto in retrograde. So Saturn retrograde, Pluto in retrograde. So there's something about the way that you do things in a mystical perspective that kind of phases you out. And you have to check for basically, when it comes to your system, the root chakra. It's very important to do this, and also check your grounding when it comes to this month. Chances are that you are realigning on a spiritual level when it comes to the accentuation of the first, second, and fourth houses, okay? So basically it creates sort of a triangle system, and then it divides that by two, and then Uranus, your other ruler, is basically being harmonized with the ascendant. That means that you will be perceived in a way that's very strange, because Pluto is in retrograde. Basically, there is kind of a strangeness about the way you carry yourself, but this strangeness is one of the key signatures that makes Aquarius Aquarius. There's an attractive sort of dimension to you that brings you resources as well as reinforces your inner world. Any sort of projects that you are working in terms of making or generating or appearing successful and generating some sort of yes, financial, but also spiritual sort of dimensionality. It is very pronounced this month, okay? And when it comes to that, basically, you can expect to find commitments to be honored, unless it's like overseas or it's something online. You have to double check. Also, with Pluto in retrograde on the ascendant, check for dormant energies that are physical, that could be like flare-ups when it comes to those physical sort of symptoms. So basically, when it comes to your health, okay, Pluto in retrograde, it activates the 8th house and the 2nd house. So you have to make sure that you're clean of things that are tied to the reproductive system, as well as things that may be transmitted through sexual contact, okay? So check for those, and if you're going to go through a pathway of healing for that, make sure that psychosomatically that there is resonance in terms of that healing path. So if you're going to be taking medication for something, especially anything that's topical when it comes to the reproductive system, okay, around that area, make sure that that you also set the intention to clear out any energy that's there also. But I do see flare-ups in terms of that. Now, Venus will be in Leo, okay, accentuating your 7th house. So there is sort of a block when it comes to the chemistry that you have with others. People will strangely be attracted to you, and you're going to have people that obsess about you because of the Pluto retrograde sort of energy. Now, here's the thing about Aquarians. They are placeholders, and they tend to be phasic in terms of their timelines. So their timelines will phase from one to another, at least 2 different timelines. And you have the ability to use Pluto's energy that's in retrograde to accentuate some sort of redefinition of timelines. It's recommended to go to different city systems, that is to travel, okay, and to activate during September this harmonious thing, because it will bring you wealth for one thing, and it will bring you connections. But with Venus, okay, the lesson would be to make sure that when you're working with others, that the intention is of the highest form, that it's like dharmic, that Venus in Leo will produce you the resources you need that are pure, with the Sun in Virgo, okay, conjunct the South Node and Vesta. There's a lot that has to do with basically kind of challenges with relationships. There's going to be attraction, I told you, obsession, so watch out for those, and make sure that the attraction that you have will be purified through Venus's energy and the solar energy that goes into Virgo. Let's see, there will be sort of a new moon late August, and it will be in Virgo and conjunct the South Node, which will trigger anything that has a stem from the Lion's Gate. Now here's the thing, the Lion's Gate, which was last month, stimulated your 7th house, which it activates certain things when it comes to connections with the most soulful resonance, okay? When that happens, then Mercury will essentially bring you messages that have to do with your mission, with your goals, especially on a collective level. People will be more aligned when it comes to business with doing things the right way. And with it being so close to the 8th house, a lot of people will lose positions. Not to say that you're going to lose a position or a job or anything like that. What I'm saying is that there's a time systematically that is occurring since the Lion's Gate where a lot of people are going to be realigning to new timelines, okay? Getting rid of old timelines and letting the Sun, okay, in Virgo in the 8th house produce that effect for especially Aquarians. That means that basically when it comes to work that you're doing esoterically or spiritually, and if you're seeking for transformation, this would be a good month to do it, especially because Pluto is also a co-ruler of Scorpio, okay? The transformation that is occurring here is holistic, and it's guided. It's going through the solar energy, moving away from Leo, okay? Because the Lion's Gate was in Leo, obviously. The Sun was in Leo, and then the Sun moves to Virgo. It activates the 2nd house from Leo. And with that, basically on a collective level, there is huge transformation when it comes to workplaces or daily routines. And it's very important to align yourself to the Sun, to solar movement, to daily rituals, and to rising and falling with the Sun if you can. That means like having a biorhythm that's linked to solar energy. Now, furthermore, Saturn is in. It will be in in Pisces. Again, the very, very high degrees of Pisces, around 29 degrees of Pisces, and Pisces is a traditional ruler, at least from an Eastern perspective, is Jupiter. And what that means is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's something about once again, it's the same thing. It's like work and like trying to realign your daily routine to certain things, and people will be doing this on a collective level. This has to do with diet, it has to do with exercise, it has to do with any forms of like practice when it comes to skillful mastery of some sort of work or trade wind, and purifying that, making sure that it's good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. There's something about resources coming from abroad. Someone will hook you up in terms of like an important person will hook you up and give you sort of work to do. And this work could be it could be spiritual in nature. It could be definitely having to do with resources. You will be gifted in terms of that if you do the work. All right, those are some things that I see with this month. It's been kind of a light smattering. Do wish you well, my dear Aquarians. If you would like a private reading, I'm always available. Yeah, otherwise, take care. Bye-bye. Greetings and welcome, my dear Pisceans. This is Ron from tarotofthetwinsun. I'm working here on the YouTube platform to bring forward a prognosis, a look into the future for the month of September 2025 for the energy of Pisces. Now, firstly, the classical ruler of Pisces, Jupiter, as well as the Western look into Neptune as a main ruler for Pisces. We're going to track these two in terms of this month and the movement of them. We're not going to animate much, but basically what I see with Jupiter, it is in a sister sign in terms of the water triplicity in the fifth house away from Pisces. Okay, so Jupiter, it is kind of blessed in Cancer. The ability for especially the divine feminine to expand and to bring forward solar information, that is the fifth house, is very highlighted here, but it comes into contention, a direct square with the eighth house Mars. So there's sort of like a Martian disposition to Jupiter. It becomes entangled, and with this, basically the fifth house is activated. So there's a creative impulse here that expands, and it kind of brings forward a dharmic code for Pisceans, especially Pisces ascendant. Okay. And basically it creates this interesting fixed sort of challenge, okay, between the fifth and the eighth houses. Now the lesson here is about four houses. It's a deep spiritual shift that occurs from the fifth to the eighth, in which you are challenged to see the collective actions of others and then see the blessing of that by kind of parenting those actions, okay? A lot of the actions that are going on this month, they're designed to create peace or to reinforce systems of karma. And basically this is the disposition of Mars in Libra, which is in detriment, I would argue. Mars in Libra is not a happy place for Mars to be, because of the passivity and the sort of passive aggressiveness of Libra. They're in contention. At the same time, there is a possibility for you to glean something from it, and we would count houses away from Mars to Jupiter in order to see that. It would be from the 8th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 houses away. Basically, this allows for a freeing up of energy that can produce one of two things. It's very interesting because on a collective level, I think that a lot of people are behaving in this passive-aggressive way and executing timelines that are indicative of the sort of truth that's held by Mikhail. So there's an ability here to cut timelines, to readjust, to be a seamstress, okay, of collective karmas, and then there's a blessing that happens afterwards. It's the 10 houses away in the fifth house, Jupiter, okay? And that allows you in particular to sort of have like a creative explosion, or at least romantic flare-ups, okay? So like there's an ability to bring forward narratives of romance, or the ability to go to the inner child and go very deeply within, to cut off certain things or to address things in terms of your relation to other people and the karmas that they're executing. Once again, it's a very sharp type of energy. Libra can be very sharp if they're forced into it. So there's like a coercive energy on a collective level, where there's this, like for this month in particular, passive aggressiveness, very fixed energy, very egoistic. So we'll just watch out for that, okay? Because Jupiter does get a negative influence from Mars when it comes to actions, okay? Especially subversive actions, or like actions that are designed in secret. So secret actions, secret holdings, in terms of those, watch out for that. Now the other influence is Neptune's influence in retrograde in the second house, and that produces a very interesting thing for Pisces in particular. It allows for sort of major downloads that occur from the 11th and 12th cusp. And Pluto in retrograde ensures that basically on a genetic level, in terms of your DNA and a collective like evolutionary curve, the thoughts of others produce certain things that allow you to behave in a certain way, and they activate a conjunction between Uranus and Saturn, both in retrograde. Now, what does this mean? It means that programmatically, and oh, by the way, they're both in kind of like in the first house. Neptune, let's see, Neptune would be, yes, it would be in the first house, in about 29 degrees, also arguably 1 degree for Neptune in retrograde in the cusp of Aries. So when this happens, there is a point known as the Gandanta point, which is basically the transition from a water house to a fire house. From an Eastern perspective, these are karmic, not collective points, okay? Wherein on a collective level, the institutions that are, or that have been, they're being restructured. There's a strong reformist energy here. That allows for the dream of like your dream job or your dream position, your dream mission, all of that to be reformatted in some sort of way. It's a very strong reformatting type of energy. And if this occurs in the first and second cusp for you in particular, that allows for a sort of a realignment, I would say, when it comes to the way you generate wealth, the way you represent it physically on yourself in terms of fashion, in terms of what you collect, what you produce, how you are seen in the eyes of the Empress or the Emperor. That basically is very telling for this particular Gandanta point. Once again, it's a karmic knot point that's being activated, and it stimulates 3 retrograde planets plus Uranus. So there's a major shakeup when it comes to business, when it comes to resources, when it comes to connections in terms of the business realm, your friends also, friend connections, brothers and sisters, okay? But it is a harmonic thing. It allows for primarily a shift in terms of your physical disposition, your health, okay, in relation to what you are downloading from the Akashic record, or potentially how you relate this to others, how you communicate this to others in a time of great change, in a time of great, I would call it a great Aquarian reform cycle, at least for this month in particular. So it is very interesting from a Western perspective. Now, let's see, there is Mercury on the descendant for Pisces, as well as the Lion's Gate, which was on the 8th of August. It's been pushing forward a narrative, and the moon cycle, which occurs late in August, is a new moon in Virgo, and that activates your 7th house along with a conjunction with the South Node. That means that any sort of karmic situations that you have been having with others in terms of soul, it's kind of blurred, like a soul connection that has karmic sort of like expressions. They're gonna be very highly accentuated in terms of Mercury as well as the Sun and the South Node in the cusp of Virgo slash Leo. Okay. Now, with all this happening, basically, it's very important to track the motions of the moon to see what's being stimulated, how to be of service to others. Virgo is a service sign, and whatever you're dealing with in terms of your most significant relationships, they will have like basically a sort of a karmic or recycling with any sort of past energies, especially these people from past lives, and that will bring about primarily a way of perfection, a way of self-observation when it comes to these relationships. It's not heavily aspected, this whole thing, but it does allow for primarily the 3rd house to be activated, okay, which is primarily occupied by Taurus, and there's also Uranus there. So any sort of craziness that's going on in terms of relation to others on a soul level or on a karmic level will be accentuated, and you can observe that. It's not heavily aspected. I wouldn't say it's heavily aspected, but yeah, that's what I see with it, at least for this month. So hopefully that hasn't been too esoteric. I do wish you all, my dear Pisceans, if you would like any sort of private reading, I could be made available for that. Otherwise, take care. Greetings and welcome to my dear Arians. This is the third time I'm recording this stream. Hopefully it works this time. There was a honking car just now, and before that there was a misfire in terms of inputs, and there was no audio in the first recording. So this is third time's a charm, I think, on this one. Today is we're in August, probably mid-August, 15th or 16th. I'm kind of delayed on these recordings. This is for Aries. Okay, any Arian person that identifies with the cusp of Aries. Okay, we're going to be reading for you guys in particular, and we're looking into the month of September. So it's kind of a look forward into the future for Aries. Okay, and we have a screenshot here of the 1st of September. Now, firstly, Mars is in Libra, okay, which is in detriment when it comes to the actions of others on a soul level, or karmic partners or soul partners, okay? It's going to be difficult to sort of understand where they're coming from. They bring in basically passivity into their into what they're supposed to be doing, and they avoid negative karmas. That also becomes a negative karma. There's an avoidant sort of passive aggressiveness with Mars and Libra. So yeah, it's kind of difficult, but eventually you learn something about the contracts that you have with these people, and it brings forward your fourth house, Jupiter. Okay, Jupiter's energy here in the fourth house accentuates, okay, on a general level, the lessons that are supposed to be had, and it frees you up from these types of people. At the same time, you're still strongly sort of guided to interact with these types of people, Libras in particular, but Mars and Libra is in detriment. So like, it's very difficult for the correct actions, okay, the correct karmas to flow through. It sort of is like Jupiter will take away those ones or block them, okay, from actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. But like I said, non-action or even passive aggressiveness is also a type of karmic resonance, and it does have making no choice is a choice, okay? So you shouldn't be held back by that. Jupiter will take care of that when it comes to your relationships, when it comes to soul ties or karmic situations, okay? Now, the dispositor of that place, that placement, Mars and Libra, is Venus, okay? So we look to the ruler of Libra, which is Venus. Now, there's something about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11. There's something about your goals or ambitions that become accentuated this month, okay? These goals or ambitions will come from a place that is in need. It has to do with structures. It has to do with structures online, social media especially, as well as artificial or hyper official intelligences, okay? And basically your ability to be tapped in and to do the right thing in terms of what society needs, what is the right thing to do in terms of a humanitarian edge, okay, is accentuated by Pluto in retrograde. That means that basically there is a root here when it comes to the structures of Saturn, okay, that has to do with work, it has to do with career and all of that, and then you will be guided in a certain way to define yourself through that, okay? It's very interesting because like Saturn retrograde is on, it's very close, as well as Neptune retrograde is very close to your ascendant, and that accentuates certain things. Primarily, it accelerates like rewards or like downloads that you get by dealing with karmic situations, by this activation of Mars and Libra. It's not directly sort of aspecting that, but basically what I do see it as that, because the dispositor of your sign, of course, is Mars. Traditionally, Aries is ruled by Mars, and basically the actions that others, they come to a peaceful state as well. Your actions as well will produce like a self-recognition of yourself, and then you get noticed also on social media, in terms of your career, in terms of generating money, okay, the second and third house cusp. So basically this time of crazy revision that is going on in terms of business, okay, and commerce and trade and all of that, you can actually capitalize during this time period and gain rewards, gain a sense of purpose in terms of your career especially. So there is kind of a revision in that. Late August, there is a new moon that occurs in Virgo in your sixth house. So it's very important to maintain a sense of daily routine, maintain a sense of work ethic, okay? As that will bring forward mostly a sense of what you're here to do for others, okay? So the less you think about yourself, but then the more you honor yourself in terms of your daily routines, it contributes to the overall service you give to others, okay? It's a very service-oriented month, and you gain resources from it. You gain connections. Very strong presence of like gaining new friends and work connections this month. Um, the Lion's Gate, which was on the 8th of August, I haven't talked about that yet for Aries, or for any sign for that matter. It will trigger your fifth house as well as Venus and Mercury, and it will glean over here. And the portal also is highlighted by the next day after it's the 9th or the 10th of August. There was a full moon that occurred, and it was a sun in Leo opposite moon in Aquarius. Okay, so the moon was in Aquarius around that time. That also accentuated around that time these new connections that have been starting in August. They will continue in September, and they will continue to bring you resources as well to help you define yourself in some sort of way. Either your physical presence, your online presence, your avatarial presence, okay? These are all things that will benefit, okay? So that's what I see for this month. Hopefully that helps. Hopefully it's recorded. Take care now. Greetings and welcome to my dear Taurians out there. This is Ron from Tarot of the Twin Sun. I'm working here on the YouTube platform to bring a look into the future for the month of September for Taurians. Taurus, welcome to the channel. We're looking here at a snapshot of the 1st of September. Late August, there will be a new moon that accentuates primarily the 4th house. Slash 5th house, and the Lion's Gate also accentuates 4th house very strongly. So 4th and 5th houses are very activated by lunations. That is the relation of the reflection of sunlight, okay, to the moon, and then the moon waxes throughout the houses, okay. Early in September, it causes primarily an 8th house activation with the moon in Sagittarius, and then there's a harmonic sort of thing here going on with Mercury in the 5th house. So that's interesting. When it comes to your primary ruler, which is Venus, it's in the 4th house. So once again, 4th and 5th houses are going to be very, very active in terms of lunations since the Lion's Gate. And this is, of course, a hindsight reading. I didn't cover the Lion's Gate last reading, so it's important that we cover it now. And when it comes to it, basically, the 4th house activation of the Lion's Gate accentuates the 4th and 10th axis. So that's the energy of Leo combined with Aquarius in the 4th and 10th axis. So there's something about Taurus, okay, that will essentially be going through something of a transformation when it comes to the MC. Now, Taurus in particular drifts from the 1st degree to the 30th degree, from 0 to 30 degrees. And then we look at the 10th house from that. Basically, it drifts from Capricorn, the cusp of Capricorn, into Aquarius. So this is relevant primarily because of the Aquarian age and the ability for Taurians to use the Venusian mysteries to produce, primarily for this month, especially the 4th and 10th axis, sort of like opposition between Venus and Pluto in retrograde. So that's a mouthful. Basically, it allows for an interesting jump, okay, a timeline that can be shifted starting the Lion's Gate, and it shifts the 4th and 10th axis, okay? So basically, what is important, if you haven't done so already, is to align some sort of inner practice that reflects in your most immediate outer environment, okay? And that is your domicile, okay? perfecting some sort of Mandir um, technologies involving crystal technologies, for example, um, raising deities at the Mandir. Mandir basically is kind of like an altar, okay? The idea of making some sort of offering there and doing something like a puja or some sort of like intentional um, energetic sort of like cleansing through a sacrifice of some sort, okay? Also, if your altar is like located in a particular part of the house, at the center of the house, for example, or the northern direction of the house, directionality matters. Like doing all of that would improve essentially whatever happens in terms of your outer environment, the outer world, the 10th house, okay, which is basically a cusp of the career, as well as aligning on the Aquarian ideality, aligning to something that is more relevant in terms of like streams of media, okay, social media, for example, and going through that nexus in order to reflect what's going on, okay, at your altar, okay. So basically, this is an interesting way to produce certain effects post the Lion's Gate. Um, Lion's Gate also activates, and then the sun moves into Virgo, as you can see here, into the 5th house. It purifies through the modality of Earth, um, and through the modality of Virgo. It purifies and perfects something that the sun bestows upon you. Now, if you have a strong relation to the sun, the moon, okay, and its activation of the 4th and 5th house, then this can bring forth money, okay, or food or money that would basically also be designed to purify the system to carry solar information. So the advice here is to take whatever you are garnering in terms of an energetic representation, such as money, and to purify that, either through some form of sadhaka, which is like a sacrifice, an intentional sacrifice to that money, to a humanitarian aid or something like that, or potentially to give food or alms to either the homeless or those in need. Okay, these are acts that can actually help you to align and to adjust to a timeline shift. Okay, of the 10th house. 10th house is very important because you shift karmas that are you have a chance to shift karmas that have been collecting for quite a bit of time. We're talking about this life as well as other lives. And you can totally shift those narratives or jump timelines, as I said. Okay. Now, there is something that is occurring that activates all these retrograde planets. Okay. And it's a curious formation, but it's supposed to be harmonic. And it happens between Pluto retrograde as well as a yoga between Neptune and Saturn in retrograde. Those planets are retrograde plus Uranus. Okay. Now, the interesting thing is that for some time, Uranus has been in the cusp of Taurus, and that's shifting over into Gemini, which activates your 2nd house. Okay. Now, what does that mean? It means that primarily there's something about the way you have been through it. Okay. And people may have been observing like your presence or like your physical body, your spiritual sort of way of vibrating as being a bit chaotic. Now is the time to actually collate that, okay, and to perfect it in such a way that is being activated by these retrograde planets, okay. So what does that mean? It means that you can actually gain resources from very strange places, resources like money, like time, like energy. And they come from basically this interesting interplay between these retrograde planets, Saturn, Neptune, plus Pluto. Okay, Pluto's in Aquarius. Saturn and Neptune are roughly in a conjunct point between Pisces and Aries. Okay, now this means that basically there is some sort of spiritual shift of your karma that can produce the effect of generating some sort of wealth through the gateway of Gemini. Okay, what does that mean? It means that basically all the work that you're putting in to a spiritual practice can relieve karmas and bring forward money. That's basically it. And that there's a direct relation to that on a global level and on an astrological sort of general level. There is a push towards that idea. Okay, so any sort of like reformatting in terms of like workspaces, people losing their jobs, stuff like that, you will notice that it's being done for a reason, and it brings forward the initiate, the student in Gemini. Uranus is it can be a very healing energy if you embrace it totally. And for a long time, I've been doing astrology readings in terms of Western astrology for a long time, and it's been stuck in Taurus for a while, and it's moved into the first degree and the 27th minute or second or whatever of the 27th hash of Gemini it's relevant. It's very relevant. I imagine not too many people will talk about that shift. Um, Anyways, yeah, that is what I see very lightly for this month. Apologies for any delays. Wishing you guys a really good time. Take care now. Greetings and welcome to my dear Geminis out there. This is Ron from Terror of the Twin Sun. I'm working here on the YouTube platform to bring forward a look into the month of September 1st, September 2025 for the energy of Gemini. Okay, so firstly, Mercury, your primary ruler, is on the IC, away from 1 degree of Gemini. So we're looking in terms of this as an ascendant reading. The ICE is basically a very sacred space. It has to do with the most familiar, the idea of the most familiar. Now, with Mercury being in Leo and essentially the third and fourth houses being activated by the Lionsgate, okay, Lionsgate is very interesting because when it shifts away from the sun in Leo, okay, and then it moves over to the fourth house, there's something that you can gain in terms of your most immediate environment, your network, families, friends, and business associations. Okay, so basically your projects will come to fruition. A lot of these projects will have to take place from the idea of like a space that is like relatable. Okay, so like working from home, for example, or projects that begin in home with the creative impetus, okay, of Leo will start to generate certain things. Also, the idea that your friend network or your friend circle, okay, your idea of a homepage or like a platform where you have an account would be also an ideal place to begin these projects, okay? With Venus sort of glazing the third and ninth axis, okay, which is basically what has been activated for you. There's a pathway of initiation. That's the third house, the energy of the priest, the energy of the initiate comes into play. And generally speaking, when it comes to this, your ninth and 10th houses become activated, okay, in August, and it moves forward a solar projection into the fourth house. So the idea here is to find a sense of work that makes sense when it comes to inner work also, and having that reflect certain gains that you can make from the Lion's Gate, because the second house is being very strongly activated away from the Lion's Gate. Okay, that happened on the 8th of August, and as it moves forward, the sun produces chemistry with the moon, and it activates the third and fourth houses from August into September. Okay, so that means that basically there is a strong need, I would say, for you to find the most relevant connections in terms of business, in terms of commerce, as well as in terms of like your friend circle. And that network will essentially be a sense of home for you for some time. The north and south node also will be activating the fourth and 10th axis for you, which will produce certain effects. There also is kind of like an activation here of this trine plus these two other aspects that are highlighted by Saturn and Neptune in retrograde, okay, which highlights a Gandanta point, movement from a water sign, that's Pisces, into Aries, to a fire sign. And that pushes forward a sort of change that you should go to when it comes to the way you represent yourself to others. People and influencers and like people around you, you're going to be able to influence them in terms of the types of shifts that you're going through, okay, in a time of like chaos, okay. Uranus does enter Gemini in this month. I'm not sure how long it's going to be there. It could be that it finally moves away from Taurus and it remains in Gemini for some time. And if that's the case, then basically there's like a sort of transformational presence that you have for others. And people will look to you in terms of either social media platforms in order to justify their own trajectories, okay? Their own like timelines. And basically, what I see here is a chance for you to go ahead and activate certain spiritual dimensions that have to do with the inner world in order to perfect a sense of skill or something like that. And things will come to you from the 11th house. Things will come to you in terms of like ways to purify and do things that allow you to be represented in a certain way, especially through social media. Okay. So, yeah, generally speaking, kind of all over the place, not really. There is more. Mercury, your ruler, which is excuse me, it's in like it's in this like very strong solar position. There's something about the ability to gain information by holding certain mudras also, in left and right hands, but then mudras that are tied to the sun and the moon, respectively. So look into those mudras. I can't let you know on the top of my hand. One of them, of course, is Gyan, which activates Jupiter and the sun. Okay, it activates sacred knowledge that comes through that mudra, but also one that relates to the moon would be very relevant. Um, let's see here. Yeah, the sunlight. Yeah, harnessing solar energy will purify. It'll purify your inner world as well. Any sort of impurities that you have with connections with the most immediate influencers out there. I'm talking about once again business relationships as well as the way you communicate directly to your friends or to colleagues, okay, or brothers or sisters, and that will produce a certain effect that should um, kind of accentuate your need to create psychic shielding, okay, and that's one of the benefits of having such an interesting healer planet Uranus on your ascendant, okay. Um, let's see here. Yeah, that's generally what I see here. It's kind of been all over the place. Sorry for that, but it needed to come through all of this, whatever came through. Hopefully it helps. All right, take care. Greetings and welcome to my dear Cancers. This is Ron from tarotofthetwinsun. I'm working here on the YouTube platform to bring you a look into September. This is a snapshot for the 2nd of September. I should have rewound, but it's okay. We'll do it for the 2nd for Cancer. Um, and yeah, it's a look into the future for the month of September. And we have here primarily the moon, which is, of course, the primary ruler of Cancer, moving through certain houses. Um, the new moon in late August will activate the 3rd house, the Lion's Gate on the 6th of August, or the 8th of August, rather, activates the 2nd house. So there's the 2nd and 3rd house axis that's highly accentuated. And two of the things that will be of relevance there are Mercury, which is it's in the 2nd house, and energy right around the 2nd house of Leo and Virgo, as well the Sun, which is progressing from August into September, into from Leo into Virgo. Okay, so that activates interesting things. Primarily for you, they are very deep things. It accesses in August the Lionsgate, which occurs in the 2nd and 8th houses for Cancer ascendants in particular.
Now you can read this astrology forecast from any placement, but the ascendant is recommended, and any other placements, including the sun, the moon, etc., can be read from the ascendant as well. So we have here primarily the moon, which will wax from the third house and beyond, as well as the second house and beyond. So this pushes forward primarily an interesting dynamic. Um, what I see here for this month, especially for general astrology, is a timeline shift. Okay. And for you in particular, it goes directly into the MC where Vesta, as well as Neptune in retrograde, Saturn in retrograde will be activated. And then it also pushes forward the planets of chaos, Pluto in retrograde plus Uranus. So there's a huge transformational signature about the MC, which allows Cancers in particular to push forward timelines and to basically sprout new seeds when it comes to jobs, when it comes to career, when it comes to a mission or a purpose in life. Okay. So this is a great time to actually transform and align to a different timeline, and to also align to a different karma sort of spectrum. Okay, so that's a good thing. Now, one of the ways to do this is to honor the moon cycle and to honor the second and third houses. Okay, with all this solar energy that goes through basically a purification energy with Sun in Leo moving to the Sun in Virgo. Okay, it pushes forward certain lunation cycles, okay, that will directly affect your eighth and ninth houses, okay. North Node as well as Pluto in retrograde will push forward this idea of essentially coming into some sort of service, transforming deep connections, okay, and once again aligning to a sense of purpose, or like a sense of like a soul calling of some sort, okay. So this is the month to do that. And Jupiter is also on the ascendant, which kind of enhances your beauty, your resonance, your aura, and this allows for also for you to attract certain things. Okay, one of them is your very presence will melt away, or it will like sort of steal away the passive aggressive tendencies that people will have with Mars and Libra. Okay, Mars and Libra is in detriment, meaning that the planet of action of creating certain things or timelines is in detriment. So you may realize that people either in your home or your domicile or your thoughts need to be coming under revision and aligning with your actual spiritual or auric presence. Okay. So there's a subtlety here that accentuates a gift when it comes to you doing the inner work, okay, and letting your actions align with justice, with the idea of peace and harmony, okay, and finding resonance there. And essentially, Jupiter will bless you when the time is right, and that gives you good health. It gives you prominence in terms of your appearance in social circles or your most immediate appearance when it comes to first meetings, okay, which is a positive thing. Now, one thing I do want to note is at the beginning of the month, it does accentuate the moon crosses over into your descendant. Okay, when this happens on the 2nd of September, there's a strong possibility that you have to watch out that like basically the MC, it's like the things that people are doing won't align with their actual core intention. And this produces a reverse effect for you. It actually produces kind of a purification of like contracts, of business contracts, of your money. And that allows for you to essentially kind of once again resituate yourself with like the idea of your purpose or calling. With Mercury in this area, and the Sun and Venus as well as the South Node, the second and third houses will be important to align your value system with like the sense of purification. Okay, and the North and South Node are dancing on your third and ninth axis, so there's a chance for you to gain information when the time is right, to get those downloads when the time is right, in order to make that shift when it comes to your purpose. All right. So hopefully that has given some sort of look into this month for September. For the energy of Cancer, I do wish you well. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hi there, this is Ron from Terror of the Twin Sun. I'm working here on the YouTube platform to bring forward a look into the month of September for the energy of Leo. Welcome, my dear Leos. Welcome to the channel. Please like, share, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. We'll go ahead and get into it. So basically, the sun is very powerful, and it's been greasing Leos with a sort of very strong coating that physically as well as metaphysically represents like this strong solar energy, yeah? And that activates primarily the first and second houses in August as well as September. The Lion's Gate activated basically Venus as well as your relationships as well as like your money, and this like it kind of bestows wealth upon the way people perceive you. Okay, that's the first house. So yeah, we are reading from an ascendant. You can read from the sun and the moon, etc. But yeah, this is an ascendant reading. So basically, when it comes to this, the sun and the relation to the moon in creating new moons as well as full moons, okay, is very relevant. And basically, I do see here something like a significant situation where it's either you're directly in contact with someone, okay, or potentially that you tap into like a knowing, kind of like twin flamey type of energy, okay? A knowing of someone else that's out there in your tribe, and it's a strong pull because of Pluto in retrograde sort of disposition in Aquarius, which activates your seventh house, okay? So in August, basically, I didn't cover this last month. In August, basically, the Lion's Gate on the 8th of August, it stimulated a strong first house, seventh house axis, okay? And that promotes relationships, how you deal with the outside world, how you make money, how you deal with love, all of that, okay? The thing is that your seventh house is in Aquarius, and basically the Pluto signature that's there, it activates something in the month of September. And basically it's on the descendant, yes, and it also activates here the 8th house and the 10th house. Now this means that primarily there is a transformation when it comes to your way of dealing with the outside world, and it is triggered primarily through one connection in particular, a connection with someone from your soul tribe, a soul connection, maybe even a karmic sort of energy. Now the thing is that you're a descendant. When it comes to a Leo disposition, you attract Aquarian energy, and there's something about the way we deal with the karma and the depth of certain relationships that brings forth kind of like a way to stabilize or a restabilizing effort in the month of September. And this has to do with, I've been talking about it with other zodiac signs, it has to do with basically shifting and then coming onto new or different timelines. And I'm telling you, it's triggered by one of these connections in a soul essence type of resonance. So it's a deep trigger that comes from an opposite other, a soul energy, a soul signature. And you don't have to do much when it comes to this. There might be some sort of like really strong disposition of the fifth house that allows for the moon to convey certain messages, okay? These messages have to do with anything from the second to the fifth house and then beyond. So basically, it stimulates wealth, it stimulates the way you relate to food and money, energy, okay, your health, and then it moves to connections, friend connections, Mars and Libra. Basically, yeah, when it comes to that, you need to find a way to let closures happen when you deal with certain friends that are no longer for you, and then promote some sort of shift when it comes to like your karma, how you deal with people, how you deal with people in the business world, especially. And just shedding all of that will be very positive for you. It produces a strong harmony between the sun and the south node, and then it relieves you of certain like desires, especially things that are played out, things that you've already done before. You just lose interest in it. Yeah, that's what I see primarily for this month. Let's see, the dispositor Mercury is about 12 houses. It is a spiritual time. Some of the gifts that you have, that you gain primarily through the sun's movement to the first, the second, and then the third when it gets to Libra in September. It's going to be very positive. It stimulates a lot where it's like your actions align to a way of doing things with other people, and then you observe the actions of others, and then yeah, it's just a matter of like really getting into some more of that coding that the sun will do for you. Okay, stimulating your seventh, eighth, and ninth houses is very strong for August, September, and October. All right, that's what I see with it. Hopefully that helps. If you want to look to other questions, you can send a private email inquiry or whatever. Otherwise, do take care now. Bye bye. Greetings and welcome to my dear Virgos out there. This is Ron from Tarot of the Twin Sun. I'm working here on the YouTube platform to look into the future astrologically for the energy of Virgo. We'll be using the Ascendant Cusp to do this reading. So Ascendant Virgos, this is especially important for you. However, if you don't know your Ascendant, you can also read this for the Sun, etc. Because the Sun is directly on Virgo, at least in terms of the ninth degree of the cusp of Virgo, which is very cool. So happy birthday to you all. Firstly, especially into August. The Lion's Gate was very important. I didn't cover that 2 months ago or whenever I did the last astrology reading. So I'll do that now. It activates primarily your 12th and 6th axis. So there's something like spiritual work that needs to break through in terms of doing that work. And the more you can observe shifting in terms of like what you're doing in terms of like your extracurricular, especially, the more you'll be rewarded. Try to be creative. Venus and Mercury will essentially bless you and help you to push forward any change or like go through any blocks or obstacles, okay, to promote that change. And also there is a strong inclination of Mercury in the 12th house. Now when Mercury is in the 12th house in the cusp of Leo, basically there is something like spiritual information that comes through any sort of spiritual practice that you're doing, and it unites with the divine feminine in the Venusian quality of this placement in the 12th house. And basically what I see here is the sun, okay, which activates your 12th and first houses from August into September, and then well into October as well. So generally speaking, this will activate basically work connections or like clientele, and they will come and they will have a very strong programming that they need to do. Okay, they want to lose themselves into this type of science or like this type of work, if that makes any sense. It has to do with like losing themselves by getting noticed like on social media, or they get lost by writing too many different streams of social media, and they need to detox from that. There also is something about you that can gain quite a bit in terms of work connections. Once again, your MC is highlighted with Uranus directly on the 10th house, 9th house, 10th house cusp, okay, which is right here between Taurus and the in the cusp of Gemini, primarily in Gemini in 5 degrees. That's where your MC lies, at least for this reading, and that is a strong disposition. It allows for an activation of the 6th house, creative work that produces deep connections with spiritual people, and then it opens a gateway, and then you learn things through that connection, through the work that you're doing for a particular people in some sort of way. So the idea here is to take the divine feminine and allow it to produce this change, okay, by sort of seeking out relationships that are right for you, spiritual dharmic relationships, getting into a sattvic lifestyle, okay, having less, gaining more through spiritual riches. All of this is very positive. Now your one thing that you can do, okay, is to honor the 12th and first houses. And that is the cusp of Leo as well as Virgo. There are planets in here that have to do with Venus, Mercury, Sun, and the South Node. And basically, this is a time to essentially align yourself with gifts from a past life, from a past life when it comes to a death sequence. Something about that experience in that past life was very it's very what would you call it, it echoes during this time. So insights that you've had in terms of your skills, okay, and the way you represent yourself, the way you represent yourself spiritually, will have some sort of echo with some sort of past life trauma or death sequence. Okay, that's what I see with it. Hopefully that helps. If you want to look to other questions, you can send a crystal ball with 3 questions. Wait, no, you can't do that, not on this platform. Yeah, if you want, you can just reach out through email, blah blah blah. All right, take care now. Greetings and welcome to my dear Libras out there. Welcome. This is Ron from Tarot of the Twin Sun. I'm working here on the YouTube platform to bring forward a look into the month of September. Excuse me, September 2025, and this is for the cusp of Libra. We'll be reading from the cusp of Libra, the first house. So basically, yes, it's an ascendant reading. However, you can read this from any other planetary placements, just accordingly. So yeah. Firstly, now Mars is in the ascendant, and it produces an interesting thing. When it comes to your actions are in detriment to the way that you are perceived. The passive way, the middle path, is very prominent with Libras now. So you might find that you are able to sort of pull off an androgyny, or like a passivity, when it comes to the way you represent yourself, especially in first meetings, first circumstances. When you're attracting clients, when you're attracting significant others, anything like that. Venus graces you, but then also Mars gives a sort of manglic energy to you. So you have to be careful, because you can trigger people in certain ways, and the effects will be mostly defined by Saturn on the descendant, as well as Vesta and Neptune. Both Saturn and Neptune are in retrograde on the descendant. Okay, so it's interesting because if the sword of truth is held in Justice's hand, in Libra's hand, right, then there's an ability to discern and speak the truth. However, your actions need to align with that. Okay, the best way to do that is to be friendly, be kind. That's like the only and best way I can see that as. Because the moon, as it progresses away from the 12th house as well as the 11th. Now, the thing is that the moon is a sort of redirector, okay? It absorbs sunlight and it redirects it at the same time. So what that means is that there is something about, whoa. There is something about the way things are done, okay, by Libra, that produces certain effects when it comes to those who you're working with. You're going to affect a lot of people, and it should produce some sort of very strong Leonic energy that's very deep. The Lion's Gate that is activated in August will actually help to accentuate this. And the Lion's Gate is activating the 11th house, which is the cusp of Leo, your cusp of Leo, plus the 12th house. And there's a lot going on when it comes to this that allows you to sort of align with messages that come from the divine, okay, in the form of downloads, okay? So these downloads are set into the subconscious. They're put below consciousness, and then eventually they come to the light, okay, through the cusp of Virgo. And this will activate certain things on new moon, which is basically sun and moon conjunct either in the 11th or 12th houses in August, September, respectively, plus full moons, 11th and 5th house axis, plus the 12th and 6th house axis, okay? When this occurs, basically, there is a strong activation of a trine plus like two other very positive aspects that accentuate your seventh house, okay, the descendant, between the sixth and the seventh, plus between the eighth and ninth, and between the fourth and fifth houses, okay? And it kind of creates like a reshuffling when it comes to how you deal with others, especially significant others or karmic others, okay? Whoever's in your life will produce a certain effect that will essentially accentuate this harmonious trine sequence here. And what that means is basically you will be able to shift your perspective to align with truth, to also align with solar truth that comes through the fourth and fifth house cusp. Now, when it comes to the craziness, basically, people are going to be a reflection of this, but they also are going to align to new timelines, and you will be able to observe this and call it out. However, with Mars in Libra, it is best that your presence alone and your sort of trajectory alone will already provide some sort of leadership position. You're going to be able to guide people when it comes to the movement of the moon through the first and the sixth houses, how you represent yourself, okay? How you represent yourself, and also how you are known by others. And basically, you're going to be a sort of middle path once again. This androgyny, this sort of like spiritual detached, yet detached, yet you're still pointing to something. So it's kind of like you're in a leadership position. Okay. Sun, Venus is in the 11th. It's grazed over in August. So basically, there's a huge Lionsgate portal on the 8th of August that happened already that essentially will activate your 11th and 12th house cusps. And this brings forward a very strong and interesting way to align with a spiritual path, okay, that is independent, that has to do with healing, and then you represent that at the end of August and into September, which is a good thing. That's what I see with this short but sweet reading of astrology in terms of this month. One more thing. Let's see. There's something about people coming after your money or you coming after other people's money. This money comes from like a universal source. You do not have to chase it, nor do you have to worry about giving it to others. Money should flow accordingly, and it should come from a place of mystery, which is a positive sort of affirmation here. Hopefully that helps. If you want to look to any other questions, you can send a private inquiry and we can get to a private reading. Otherwise, take care. Greetings and welcome to my dear Scorpios out there. This is Ron from Tarot of the Twin Sun. I'm working here on the YouTube platform to bring forward a look into the month of September 2025 for the energy of Scorpio. So we have here an interesting thing where the Mars in Libra sort of detriment works in your favor. It is a silent sort of whisper that comes in the passive divine feminine through the high priestess that accentuates your 12th house cusp, and then it brings messages to your second house, first house, third house, anything that moves away, fourth house, fifth house, from the 11th or 12th, which is basically your 10th or 11th, excuse me, 10th or 11th houses, which are strongly activated early August, and then it moves through from your 10th to the 11th in September, which is a good thing. Now, when this happens, the solar activity that is triggered through the Lion's Gate, okay, and I'm doing a retrospective in terms of this, especially when the 10th house is activated when the sun is opposite the moon in the fourth house, which was the 10th of August, basically. Um, there's a strong sort of sequencing that sets you onto a path of karma, okay? And this karma is more like dharma in terms of it. And it has to do with the left foot, the left path in terms of taking the pathway of the mystery, of the divine feminine, okay? And then using solar programming okay, solar programming, excuse me, that is triggered by the light of Venus to do certain things, okay? And basically, the 10th, 4th house axis, as well as the 11th and 5th house axis, are going to be strongly sort of illuminated and redirected by the moon's light, either full moon or new moon, lack of light, right? That actually produce certain effects in the month of September. I do believe there's an eclipse. I'm not an eclipse specialist, but I do believe that we are going into eclipse season soon, which would be very very active in terms of 10th, 11th, and 12th houses potentially. Okay, because of this, primarily the mystery of Mars and the mystery of Pluto will grant you something. Now, Mars is traditionally a sort of it's an extroverted planet. Okay, Pluto, which is the co-ruler or the Western main ruler of the cusp of Scorpio, is also a ruler. Okay, but it's introverted Mars. It's introverted action. Okay, when this occurs, at least in terms of the activation of Mars as well as Pluto in September, okay, and then the way the moon relates to it as it progresses throughout the houses, it will activate basically a strong leonic energy that echoes from the Lion's Gate, and then it activates through two primary planets, or one of them is a subplanet, Pluto in retrograde as well as Pars Fortune. The 4th house becomes activated as well, the 5th and 6th cusp, okay, where Saturn and Vesta and Neptune in retrograde, Saturn will also be in retrograde, will be activated, plus the 7th and 8th house cusps, okay, which is pretty powerful, Uranus. So there are two major planets of transformation that shake up your houses, or the house cusp between creativity and work, okay, and blocks in work. So it's important to honor the Sun and Mercury, which are in somewhat of a conjunction in the 11th house, to honor things that are ideas or suggestions from a collective conscious. So pay heed to what is being downloaded on a collective level by people, how their stuff is shifting, how their relationship to money is shifting. Venus and Leo, how it's being purified, how the mind is being purified, how certain social media streams are being purified. Okay, this is all due and attributed to the Lion's Gate and the progression of the sun into the cusp of Virgo and eventually to the cusp of Libra. Okay, which is very powerful. So you have to find a spiritual practice that will bring you to the gateway of initiation. That is, it would have been better to have done it on the 8th of August and to make that intention. You still can, okay? And the best way to do that is to treasure the mystery of Saturn, okay? Which is in retrograde, and it's kind of in Pisces in between Aries, which is a point of Gandanta, and that is a karmic knot point. On a collective level, there are people that are dealing with this, and you in particular, between the 5th and 6th house cusps, are going to sort of see how a father or boss figure, how even God or Christ consciousness, the Buddha, okay, how these figures sort of shake up something in terms of your daily routines, and then create an addition that creatively allows you to address any blocks and purify them through solar energy. Saturn will help you to do this, as well as Vesta and Neptune in retrograde. Saturn's in retrograde as well. There's something about a collective energy of Saturn in retrograde that pushes forward an Aquarian ideal, okay? And it brings you stuff. It brings you attraction, maybe even latent attraction. So watch your algorithms. There could be like a sort of delayed effect on certain things being manifested, but they will come, as well as Pars Fortune, which should bring money in, okay? Now, these are good things when it comes to resources that are hidden, that are creative in nature, that are spiritual in nature. These resources will tenfold. Okay, That's what I predict, at least with this harmonious trine between Uranus and Pluto. When Uranus and Pluto are in some sort of trine sequence, they activate those houses that are respective in. That's the fourth and eighth house for you, or seventh and third and fourth, seventh and eighth cusps. And that produces a certain degree, okay, of work for you that is of a spiritual nature. The fourth and eighth houses are very spiritual houses for you, okay? And that has to do with the idea of conceiving through the mental aptitude of the triplicity of air, okay? There's gravity, a shakeup. If there are like sort of earthquakes that are going through the planet, there's something about the emanation that comes from that, okay? For example, there was an earthquake somewhere in Russia, and then it created ripples. But these ripples weren't the gigantic tsunamis that destroyed everything, that could have destroyed things like total things like in Japan or in Indonesia, those previous tsunamis. These were actually intentional, and they were designed to carry that ripple effect. Okay, a ripple basically is a stir that gently shifts consciousness, and it gears it towards the Aquarian ideal. All right, that is what I see with this month. Pretty deep. I'm gonna leave it there. I could go even deeper, but I should not. Not right now, at least. One last thing. I'm gonna give you a gift. The 10th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 1, 2, 3. Okay, there's something that people will pick up on, and it's kind of like this whispering energy. You will be able to call it out or know when there is a shift in types of work or media that should be produced in terms of a desire principle. The trick is to get rid of the desire and to know that this knowledge that is being dispersed through, I would call it the triplicity of air, um, it's conceptual, so it's universal, and you're supposed to share it. Um, so I would recommend, as a service, to recycle certain things on social media that deserve credence. Okay, to create, to play the role as influencer, not as like the actual creator, but to influence the algorithms as a form of service for others, if that makes any sense. Okay, hopefully that helps. Take care now. Greetings and welcome to my dear Sagittarians out there. Welcome. This is Ron from Tarot of the Twin Sun. I'm working here on the YouTube platform to bring forward a prognosis in terms of the month of September for the energy and the cusp of Sagittarius. We will be reading from the Ascendant for this, so accordingly you can shift or just trust in the information that what is being channeled here uh, may or may not be relevant. Trust in the resonant sort of harmonics of this to use in terms of your own progression for the month of September. Okay, so Sagittarians, welcome. Firstly, Jupiter is in the eighth house. It does create something of a tension between Mars, okay? There is a type of hidden gift, and it comes to exaltation um, with cancer, with the energy of Cancer. And this gift, it comes like it comes um, after you deal with the sort of cool or collected, detached observations of others. There's something about a hypercritical way that people are thinking, okay, that allows for clear judgment, clear justice, okay, in terms of the sort of truth that provides a sort of like clear directive that is very detached and it's very cold at the same time. Mars in Libra is a cool type of energy, and if it's in the 11th house cusp, it activates your houses in particular of desire. Now, desire is like very strongly a product of like of the subconscious, yes, but also um, it can be reprogrammed in order to align with your will. Once the will is aligned with the ego, and the desire is tied to the ego, yeah, then the desire, it becomes more of an intention. Okay, I'll say that again. Mars in Libra basically creates a sort of um, a window of opportunity for conceiving certain gifts that are esoteric, at least for Sagittarians. That is the eighth house, Jupiter in Cancer. One of them is like heightened empathy, meaning that you're going to be able to pick out, especially from people who may throw at you certain directives in terms of questions. Now, when a question becomes conditional, it becomes extremely myopic and it expects a certain result. They only want to hear what they want to hear, these people. Now, there is another logos to that, and basically truth will be paramount, and empathically you will be able to pick up on the subtle cues, okay, of your general stream of people, of the astral, okay, and you're going to be able to understand why it is that certain things that they want to do, they don't do, and then you understand the sort of gravity of that, I want to call androgyny, the gravity of that duplicity, multiplicity, the gravity of that passivity. Okay, so there's a middle way that people will behave, okay, and you will empathically know both sides. You will kind of like be a heightened devil's advocate. And this creates trouble. This is a square sort of aspect, the 11th and 8th houses, Jupiter and Mars, Jupiter in Cancer, Mars in Libra. Okay, that's one thing that you will have to learn. Now, the Sun, which is progressing on the 8th of August into September, into Virgo, and then furthermore into September/October into Libra, will accentuate your 9th, 10th, and 11th houses. There's something that is seated at the Lion's Gate that is just before your MC, and resources will come. People that have resources will also come, and people that are your friends will give you resources. Okay? And it is through the way you address this tension between Jupiter and Mars that will bless you. Now, the trick is to be empathic and not to judge. Okay? To know what it is of the motivations of others, especially others who do not know what the fuck they're doing. And then to not judge it, but to let it be. That is the trick here. There is a pathway of mercy, forgiveness, peace, loving care, and compassion that will be your best benefactor when it comes to the 9th, 10th, and 11th houses that are being activated by the Lion's Gate, and furthermore, producing networks of resourcefulness for Sagittarians around this time period. Okay, that is a short, long about it. One other thing is that the 3rd and 4th houses will be activated and will also be giving you things on the full moons of this time period. So when the Sun progresses from the 9th to the 10th house, okay, in August into September, there will be an activation of full moon cycles that happen on the 3rd and 4th. And this brings forward energetic resources that come, okay, through the skillful manipulation of your friend circles, okay, or vice versa, how your friend circles will skillfully manipulate you. And this produces resourcefulness in terms of the cusp of the 4th house, Pisces, where you generate spiritual richness, okay, through Pars Fortune and the North Node. So it's a very interesting sort of waxing of the Sun and then the full moons that come from it that will produce interesting sort of interesting sort of effects that happen around the third, fifth, and sixth houses on the descendant. So what this means is that people will come in, you will be selective, they will bring resources, and you will choose the one that is most resourceful. However, they also bring in this crazy energy that allows you to be a little bit more creative, that allows you to sort of understand how certain things, when it comes to places of work especially, will disintegrate, especially creative work. Things that are done in the creative field, okay, don't necessarily have to outlast other things. There are certain trends. You will become privy to these trends. You will know who the trendsetters are, and these people are crazy motherfuckers. Excuse me, it's just crazy people. And it will accentuate your descendant. So there is something of a reward when it comes to the progression of Pluto and the trine to Uranus, and then this sort of like positive harmonious aspect. It's a dual aspect with Saturn, Vesta, and Neptune in retrograde here. This blue dynamic here, which is a good thing. I think primarily you don't have to worry about it, but things will be creatively sort of purged out, and then you will be left with the one, if that makes sense. Hopefully that you can use that as according to whatever it is that you need, and go with God's and the grace of light and infinite consciousness. Wishing you well. All right, take care now. Greetings and welcome to my dear Capricorns out there. This is Ron from tarotofthetwinsun. I am working here humbly through the YouTube platform to bring forward a look into the month of September for the energy of Capricorn. Welcome, my dear Capricorns. Please like, etc. Blah, blah, blah. Now, we have here Saturn disposition that triggers for you the second house, fifth house, and third and fourth house cusps. Okay, Saturn will be in the third house in retrograde. And it's an interesting disposition because there's a shakedown here, shakedown street, with Pluto in retrograde as well as Uranus in the fifth and second houses. So it's something like you align or realign to streams of wealth as well as creativity that are supposed to be coming to you because of the disposition of your work. Okay. Now, the more you do work that is designed to heal the inner child somehow and to create cycles of peace, compassion, mercy, and forgiveness to those people around your workplace, the more you will be rewarded in this month. Now, the thing is that in August, the 8th of August, there was a Lion's Gate that opened up on the 8th house. I haven't talked about this in the past months, but I'm going to cover that again. And it activates for you the 8th house around Venus and Mercury, and it stimulates a fixed sort of opposition, okay, to your second house. So your resources come under duress, and then there's an opposition here, and it's like a purification energy. Once you are aligned with the gifts that Venus brings, okay, once you are aligned in terms of the depth of the energetic resonance, okay, that comes through purifying that in which you eat, that in which you spend your time, that in which you pray, that in which you do certain things. There is a perfection that occurs there that is activated with the sun in the 8th house. Now, when the sun's in the 8th house in early August, it produces purification during the Lion's Gate, and this will humble you. This will make you to transform your idea of a father figure, okay, to release that, okay. It's kind of like anyone who is in a position of authority will go through some sort of solar purgation, okay, and they might actually emanate this on a physical level. And the passing of these people or the transformation of these people will bring forward a sense of clarity of your mind, okay, and your resources related to your mind. How you go about your commitments and your obligations in a responsible way by aligning with a dharmic code that is activated during the Lion's Gate. Okay, so that's a mouthful. Now, when the sun progresses from the 8th to the 9th and then through the MC, okay, in September, that is a positive thing. And it brings forward a certain dynamo that allows you to once again heal up, clear out certain karmas that have to do with relation to especially men in the workplace or in the place of your MC, whatever type of work or mission that you're on, in terms of extracurricular work, all of that, it aligns with a sense of purpose, okay? And there's a sense of perfection, okay, on the 10th house. I'll say it again. There is a sense of perfection on the 10th house. And it sort of forces you to address certain things about the way things are done, okay, when it comes to, like, let's say, working from home. For example, Microsoft. Microsoft is now calling in people, blah, 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 and they're trying to retrofit their employee basis. They're trying to can people by calling them back into work. Okay, so it's kind of like an ultimatum. You have to go into yourself in order to deal with things that are outer. Okay, and your work life is directly related to family issues that have not yet been resolved. That is why mercy, passion, forgiveness, all of that will be relevant in terms of actually aligning to this solar progression as well as the moon cycles that are going to be triggered here, primarily activating the second house and third houses. Okay, so what does that mean? As well as the fourth. There's something about the way you deal with, okay, your own inner world, your resources, your friend circles that will provide you with the impetus, okay, to go ahead and do good things, to go ahead and generate money or creative energy in order to produce the work that you're supposed to, okay, by doing these things, okay. Oh, Lord. And that's a mouthful. Saturn. Where is Saturn? Saturn. Okay. Yes. One more thing. There's something about change. Now, if you're going to hold on to things, it's best to redistribute that energy or recycle it, launder it in some sort of way, especially when it comes to your money. Now, I'm not just saying go and launder your money. No, I'm saying that you need to shift that energy of what you define to be valuable, okay? And know that it can be either redistributed, changed, or recycled into the system in some sort of way. You need to spend in order to make. You need to spend in order to make somehow. That is one thing that I can tell you, as well as your friends. They need to spend in order to make. Okay, so yeah, it's been kind of scattershot this month. I've done what I've can. I've said what I'm supposed to say. Wishing you well, my dear Capricorns, and of course to everyone else in the zodiac community within the twin sun. Wishing you well. Thank you so much for the continued support of the channel. Blah, blah, blah. Take care.